Welcome back to Toni Farmer's Garden, the podcast. Have you ever thrown away a bag of aspirational spinach? You know what I mean. You had every intention of eating that spinach, and yet it ended up in the trash. You are not alone. We waste or throw away about 35% of our food. And that's not just waste from farms and manufacturing. A lot of that is in our own homes. Today, we're talking with Jonathan Deutsch, the head of Drexel University's Food Lab, who's also a classically trained chef with a PhD in food studies. He's going to teach us how his team uses food science and consumer behavior to turn food waste into food people will actually eat. Let's talk about it. John, thanks for being with us today. 35% of the world's food gets wasted, and your lab is doing something to solve that. Tell us all about it.
Solve it might be a lofty goal, but incrementally improve. How about that?
Sure, I'll take it.
We do a lot of work in culinary solutions to surplus food, upcycling. And basically what that is taking food, not trash, but food that is not intended to be sold for human consumption as is, and raising it to a higher level. And we talk about the growing population, climate threats, the need to establish our food sovereignty and food security for the future. And those are very real pressures, but it's really hard to have that conversation about increasing agricultural production, feed a growing planet, and so on, when we're already wasting about a third or more of the food we produce. There are already enough calories produced on the planet that we should not have food insecurity and hunger, specifically, especially in this country, but globally.
Especially when we consider that about 13% of the world's population is food insecure, and we're throwing away about a third of the world's food. We can't close that gap entirely, but there's work to be done. So let's start at a place that virtually everyone can relate to, the banana. So it's a huge issue it's not just, your average suburban mom who bought too many bananas and the kids ate two and there's 6 left and now they're brown. There's only so much banana bread you can make. And then most people don't realize what a huge issue produce is for large food banks like Philabundance, for example. It's wonderful to get truckloads of bananas and fresh fruit to come in, but if you can't get them to the end consumer within what feels like minutes sometimes, it's now trash. So just maybe start with us there. I know you did something really interesting with bananas, and then let's shoot off into other products.
Sure. The way we got into this work was we were actually recruited by the EPA, who at the time was working with some Penn urban planning students to do some work in the neighborhood here in West Philadelphia and University City around redistributing surplus food. So they did a really efficient job of going to retailers, picking up these overripe bananas, getting them to soup kitchens and shelters and community-based organizations. And that was all wonderful. But they seemed to miss the part where people would actually choose to eat them. And so, and I think it's an assumption a lot of folks in food security make, that it's about access. If we just gave people access to more fresh fruits and veggies, and they were available at the corner store and they were available in food distribution boxes, like this would solve the problems. But of course, people have to eat them and want to eat them. And one of the reasons the suburban, nice produce store, supermarket looks so enticing is because they spend a lot of time and money and excess product merchandising these beautiful areas, right? And so you sort of compare that to, here's some spotty bananas from the supermarket if anyone wants them. And a lot of consumers are like, no, I'm good, even if it's free. I'm not that hungry. So our students looked at this situation and said, we can use our culinary skills to make these bananas super enticing. And they made something that has no extra ingredients required and is so simple, and anyone can do it. And when I give this presentation and tell this story, most people say, oh yeah, banana bread. And I'm like, no, that's a terrible idea, right? It's
Right.
time intensive. There's 2 bananas per loaf. There's added sugar.
It's not particularly good for you.
It's not really, it's cake. We call it
Time
bread
consuming
to make us feel good, but it's cake.
Yes, it is.
And so the solution was basically a banana whip, a frozen banana, quote unquote ice cream. where if you just freeze bananas and ripe bananas and food process them, you could even do it in a mixer. It doesn't have to be any, you could do it with a potato masher. You can get essentially a frozen banana puree that tastes a little bit like ice cream. People like getting nutrition in a more fun way. People know they should eat, fresh fruits and vegetables, but it can be a drag if they're not seasoned well or delicious. And then there's a creative component, right? You can add strawberries, you can add chocolate syrup, you can add peanut butter, you can make it very nutrient dense, you can add all sorts of fun things. And so that really got us on this line of, we're taking overripe bananas from a supermarket and getting them into a shelter and turning it into a dessert, but that's not really scalable. But what if we did something similar at the commercial level? For example, all those little baby carrots that are, the nutritionists love, but they're not baby carrots. They're big carrots that are milled down, and about
Yeah.
50% of them are carrot dust and
Yep.
about 50% are carrots, and we started asking questions like what happens with all that carrot dust and all sorts of nut milks. Um, but as everyone knows, those are not milks, right? Those are juices. And every nutritionist will tell you, well, when you drink juice, you're drinking the sugars and the starches. You're not drinking the pulp, and the pulp is
Yeah.
where the fiber and the protein and all the good stuff is, and we're leaving that in the press. So is there a way, all of us need more fiber, many of us need or want more protein. Is there a way to take that out of compost or animal feed and make delicious food out of it? And we actually started an association in 2019 called the Upcycled Food Association, which now has hundreds of members and hundreds more certified upcycled food products.
Bananas is a fascinating place to start. And I had some experience years ago working in a food pantry where we were so excited to get produce from a local farm. They dropped it all off. We thought, in our ignorance, hooray. But just like you've mentioned, a lot of people either don't know what to do with it or people don't realize how many people that access a food pantry are living in their car or don't have access to any cooking equipment. So we handed out bags of green beans, and a lot of the people came and refused them and wanted a can of green beans because they knew what to do with it. It had already been salted. So we're solving a lot of pieces along the process here. But I love the idea that you could draw end consumers into this by using a product and having restaurants or businesses or homeowners being able to buy bags of frozen banana and then use it to make smoothies or ice cream along the way. So I saw that you're working with Aramark, which is a pretty big deal. They're probably the largest operator of cafeterias, both business and public, probably in the world, I would guess. What are you doing with Aramark?
Definitely top three. I'm not sure their current
Yeah.
ranking. A few years ago, we innovated around their plant-based and plant-forward menu offerings. Their existing offerings were not super popular when we were looking specifically at college campuses, residential dining, so students in dorms, and healthcare, so hospital cafeterias and places like that. Not so much patient meals. Any food service company, when they need menu innovation, many of them go to their suppliers. And I won't mention the suppliers, but they went to the folks who make things like veggie burgers and
Mhm.
plant-based meats and so on, and said, we're getting some lackluster reviews on our plant-based offerings. We want to refresh them and update them a little bit. Can you give us some new ideas? As you would imagine, the suppliers of plant-based veggie burger kind of things came back with new veggie burger toppings and new veggie burger flavors and things like that. And they found, not surprisingly to us, it didn't solve the problem. What they missed was that for students who eat a mostly vegan or vegan specifically, but vegetarian as well, diet, individual menu items might taste delicious. So if you taste a delicious veggie burger, you might say, "Wow, this is good. I would like to have this in the cafeteria." But then you extrapolate that out for the day and you say, okay, I'm going to have a vegan egg and breakfast sausage sandwich for breakfast. And then I'm going to have a veggie burger for lunch. And then I'm going to have spaghetti with veggie meatballs for dinner. And at the end of that day, you feel like you have a brick of plant-based meat in your stomach. So when we did the consumer research, what we heard loud and clear from consumers, especially vegan consumers, was we want vegetables. That's why we're vegetarian. That's why we're vegan.
Ah, love to
And we're
hear
not getting
that.
enough veggies, right? So our really successful menu items, which are still on the menu with Aramark, are things like buffalo cauliflower cheesesteak,
Mm.
um, bulgogi mushroom burgers, all sorts of grain bowls, and things with veggie, additions. And then the next project that we did a couple years ago was, okay, so wonderful. You have these offerings, and certainly the vegan and vegetarian students are selecting them, but these are also healthier and lower carbon options than the other offerings in the cafeterias. So how do we get omnivores to shift their purchasing behavior in an all you care to eat environment, right? You can't discount, you can't do a promotion where you say, it's half off, or it's discounted for Climate Week or something like that. You can say, do you want a beef burger? Do you want a turkey burger? Do you want a veggie burger? What is going to make an omnivore choose that veggie burger? And so we tried a bunch of different strategies for nudge research to drive students in that direction, and they were really successful. So things like limited time offerings, things like making that the frictionless choice. So, having those veggie burgers wrapped and hot and ready to just grab. If you want a beef burger, absolutely wait in line over here. You can order it, and 5 minutes later, you'll have your beef burger. But if you're in a rush to get to class, just grab the veggie burger. And one of my favorite examples, this is, I think, part of the problem is there's a lot of people who are my age, old white male chefs who think everyone eats like they do. So we worked with actually a different campus on their breakfast sandwich program. They had like one of these warm cases, and they had 3 rows of bacon, egg, and cheese, 3 rows of sausage, egg, and cheese, and then 3 rows of egg and cheese. And we said, well, what if you just did egg and cheese? You're saving money, you're lowering carbon footprint. And then say if you want sausage or bacon, egg, and cheese, order over here. We'll do double meat, we'll do whatever you want. And sure enough, almost everyone chose the egg and cheese, which lowered carbon footprint, saved money. And when we asked for consumer satisfaction data, everyone said it was fine. No
Mhm.
one said it's missing something. I like the old one better. They weren't, uh, you know, glowing about, their college cafeteria food, but they all said, it's good. This is good. It's a good breakfast sandwich, right? So part of it is, I think, recalibrating our expectations about what students want, what consumers want. First of all, by asking them, but second of all, by not holding on to these assumptions. And another great example that a lot of us grew up on sort of the meat and three. What's for dinner tonight? And the answer is the protein, right? It's we're
Mhm.
having chicken, we're having fish, we're having meatloaf, and then by the way, we're going to have some sides, right? And so really getting away from that standard American diet and saying there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way you want to eat, but let's center, we're having a roasted broccoli as the focus, and we're going to have some crispy pancetta. So you're going to have, half an ounce or an ounce of meat, and it's going to be really high impact and flavorful, rather than, 2 6-ounce pork chops with a side of broccoli, and really just thinking through how we calibrate our meals differently, and letting go of some of those assumptions about what people want, which may in fact not be what they want.
You sound like you have read Dan Barber's Third Plate.
I have read some of it. I didn't read all.
Yeah. It's a
But
dense read. It's
yeah,
a
we're
dense
very
read.
like-minded in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, but that same idea of shifting to a third plate where meat is not centered. So, all right. So fascinating work around cafeterias. And I've seen nudges work too. I read about a university where even just a little sign by the cafeteria about we have a low carbon footprint meal today, or we have like with just a nudge, and they saw sales change. So if you don't believe in consumer market research, you're missing out because there's some fantastic work to be done in there that impacts all of us, helps us make better choices. All right, let's flip the other way. So I don't know many people that remember their college dining experience being high cuisine. It does exist, but most of us don't recall that. But you did or are doing some work with Terrain, which is a restaurant owned by Anthropology, which is high end, correct? And what kind of work were you doing there?
Yeah, you did some great research. You're digging up stuff that we've done, and I'm really proud of. So I'm glad.
Great.
We did a meal series where we really highlighted every part of each produce item. So it was a multi-course meal, and the students developed things that a lot of folks thought were not edible. So I think my favorite dinner, I went to all of them. My favorite was the corn.
How do I get an invite to that next time?
Well, now we're connected, so you'll be on our list.
Okay, great.
Follow us on social. We do a lot of events at Drexel Food Lab and at Philly Chef Conference. So there's all sorts of cool opportunities to engage with us.
I don't know if I told you this, but I'm a Drexel grad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I have a marketing degree and
Excellent.
had market research and all that stuff. And then I did my environmental science stuff at Penn. So I love Drexel. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm
go
also a
ahead.
Drexel grad.
Oh, nice.
My hospitality management degree here in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. People don't realize what a really up and coming culinary arts program that Drexel has, really doing amazing stuff and making the news all the time.
Yeah, I love our program. At Terrain, we did dishes featuring all parts of the plant. And so things that a lot of people assume are inedible, we featured on the plate. So for example, the strands from corn on the cob, we made into little nests and then put other ingredients in there. And so
Yum.
people's first reaction was, I didn't know this was edible.
Yeah.
And not only was it edible, it was delicious. Using the milk and the cobs to make broth, which is pretty standard, but a lot of people say, "Oh, I never do that," and not realizing how easy it is to get that full flavor experience, right? What we found in doing that was it was a really fun and delicious way to bring attention to reducing food waste. About 45% is consumers, and that's everything from, plate waste in restaurants, where you don't finish your portion, don't take it home, to leftovers kind of going bad in your fridge, to, you do a recipe that calls for half a bunch of cilantro and never get to the other half. There's all sorts of reasons for it. But one big reason is trim, that, a lot of folks will, they'll serve corn on the cob and they'll just eat, cut off the kernels and throw away the rest. Or they'll use, they don't realize that the skin of the butternut squash is edible, for example, or that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of edible parts of food. One of my favorite examples is when I was cooking professionally, we always save the broccoli stems. And I had a colleague who only ever served the florets. So I did a whole vegetable dish of just the broccoli stems, and
Oh, what'd you do with it?
it's just sautéed with some butter and a squeeze of lemon juice. It's delicious.
Yeah.
If you cut out the very fibrous outside and just use the core, it's really wonderful. And I heard people saying like, oh, they were trying to identify, oh, this is kohlrabi.
Uh,
Oh, this is like some like Romanesco. Like they couldn't figure out what it was. It's just broccoli stems, which everyone has in their home refrigerator, but people just don't take the extra effort to cook and serve it, don't realize it's edible. And so we've done quite a lot of work in consumer education, recipe development, and just making people aware of the bounty they already have. The typical US household spends about $3,000 a year, a family of four, on food that they never eat. And just by some thoughtful cooking, we can easily have that. And so just imagine if you had an extra $1,500 in your household budget that you could use for vacation or, loan payments or,
Or more
or
groceries at this point.
you know, car payments, whatever, more groceries, exactly. Make your dollars go further. I mean, I don't know anyone who wouldn't be excited about that.
I think there's a sadness too. Like I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while. I had 4 kids. I was responsible for grocery shopping and the dinner and storing, and then trying to talk people into eating leftovers. And that moment when you dump something in the trash can, a lot of it, because no one got to it, it checks in with, I wasted that money. We could have eaten that. So I talk a lot about just planning. If you just plan out your week. So I'd love to hear more things that we don't know that are edible, that we like. Think of through things that are in the fridge right now that people are like, did you know you could eat this? Did you know you could do this?
Yeah, there's this concept called the infinity meal that I really like, because the idea is that every meal you have something left over that can
Oh,
benefit the next meal, and it makes the cooking a little bit less daunting. I know I get frustrated. My wife gets more frustrated when, I get home, I don't know, 7:30, something. By the time I, take the dog out, look at the mail, whatever, dinner's at 9, everyone's hangry and tired, and it's like
yes.
too late.
Let's just get
And
takeout.
right. And then that takeout creates more. I know there's some work on single-use plastics, but we try not to, one of the reasons we try not to take out too much is we don't want more containers
Mm-hmm.
and, filling the house and so on. So, um, that infinity meal can work really well. You may make a roast chicken on Sunday, you take the bones, you make the stock on Sunday night, and then you come
Yep.
home and you add some veggies and noodles to that, and you have soup on Monday, so you can kind of move things along that way. Things like herb stems, there's also this idea of infinity oil. Chef Ari Miller, is now at Post Haste, always has this green infinity oil going, where all his herb stems go in the oil. They make a flavored green oil, and the flavor changes slightly based on what the herb stems are. And so they're getting another use before they go out.
But wait, I thought that was dangerous for bacteria growth. Tell me
It
how you
is
avoid that.
dangerous if you let it sit at room temperature, but if you keep it hot or in the refrigerator, you're fine.
What's his choice? Is he doing hot or in
He's
the
leaving
fridge?
it on the stove during service and then chilling it, and that's fine. The issue is people who do those, like, they're very beautiful, like, put a sprig of rosemary and some garlic cloves in a bottle and put it in your window, and then it
Got
gets
it.
sunlight. And there's a risk of botulism from that. But
Yeah.
as long as you're treating it like a hazardous food, meaning like let's say a sauce, where you could either heat it, you could keep it in the fridge, you're not keeping it forever, it can be handled safely.
I love
That's a
that
great
idea.
question. I'm glad you thought
The
about the food safety.
the flavor of that, I would imagine, I cook with herbs all the time. It must be incredible. And
Yeah, it's great.
um,
Just as like a little finishing oil, so you can, whatever you're making, you cook a piece of fish or tofu or pasta, whatever, and just like a drizzle of an herb oil is always going to perk things up. People always say, like, I wish I could cook like a restaurant, chef. And it's basically fat and salt. If you know
yeah,
how to
I
season the
agree.
salt and you know how to add fat and judiciously, and then I would add acid to that. I feel like a lot of
Hmm.
people they taste for salt, but they forget about tasting for sour. And almost
Absolutely.
every dish, I can't think of any dish that a little savory
Lemon
dish,
juice.
little lemon juice, lime, vinegar, just a shot of Tabasco, anything will just kind of lighten it up and perk it up a little bit.
Listen, I've watched enough Bobby Flay to know you're preaching gospel right there.
That's right. Yeah, no original ideas, just awareness.
So I preach herb gardening. I mean, I teach gardening. That's what I do in agriculture. But my push right now is to get every home to have a little herb garden because it's incredibly easy to manage and there's no food waste because you're just taking the sprig of what you need and saving a ton of money because those herbs, It's like $2 or $3 a bunch in the grocery store. And then most people are throwing away 3/4 of it. So that stops now.
You're not getting like, oh wow, these are like spicy oniony chives. You're usually
Mm-hmm.
getting like little green things that kind of taste like grass. But if you're clipping your own chives, you get that like, wow, it's a wild onion.
Well, I would argue that everything out of the garden tastes more, for the most part, tastes more incredible than from the grocery store. All right. Have any failures? Like, did you guys try something and you were all like spitting it out? Like, this is not going to work.
Not failures that way, but failures in terms of like commercial viability. There are certain products that are just challenging to work with. A really good one that we have just a huge abundance of is okara, which is the soy milk protein from tofu and soy milk
Uh-huh.
production, that what's left in the press. It's pretty unstable. It ferments pretty easily. Um, but it's super high in protein and fiber and minerals. But it has a little bit of like a chalky and beany flavor that some folks don't like. So that one's a challenging one to work with. Brewer spent grain is always like there's
Mm.
a ton of brewer and distiller spent grain.
Can we use that for animal feed? Is
Yeah, it
that
can
good?
be used for animal feed. It's delicious mixed into a flour blend. But it's just in such abundance and can be
Mm.
tough to stabilize. So that's one. Juice pulp from like fresh fruit and vegetable juices
Yeah.
would be challenging to work with. And these are all like good ideas. Coffee grounds.
Mm-hmm.
You can still get a lot of flavor extraction out of coffee grounds. They're antioxidant rich, but there's only so much you can do with them. So people are still playing with them, trying to figure that stuff out. We've had some good work with around citrus peels from like orange juice companies and livestock feed. So that's kind of promising, but to do them for human nutrition is tough because of the bitter
Mm.
pith and sweet aromatic side are kind of commingled then, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to separate. There's an entrepreneur named Sue Marshall who we work with at Net Zero. She's able to extract the collagen-rich membrane from eggshells. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but a lot of frustration because you just see tons and tons, truckloads of this of nutrition, right,
Ugh.
going away.
And there's only so much composting we can all do too. Um, all right. What would you consider at this point like your biggest success, your proudest, like, hey, we knocked that out of the park?
That's a great question. I think one of the brands that we work with that I'm really proud of is Matriarch Foods. They had the idea of taking the scraps from fresh cut produce. So, when you go to the supermarket and you see like diced onions and
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's becoming more common. I'm seeing more and more of that.
yeah, it's a growing sector, which, people don't like to do that stuff at home. So they were able to make a vegetable broth concentrate. And the fact that it's concentrate is also pretty important because they don't want to package and ship water around the
Yeah.
country. They want to keep it, and it's in a Tetra Pak. So that worked really well. And now they have a retail line of tomato sauces in Whole Foods. So they're a great success story. We're a tiny part of their story, but we're really proud of the work we did. I'm always going in my head of like what am I allowed to talk about? What am I not allowed
Mm,
to talk
sure.
about? Some of our
Understood.
work is confidential, but there's some great local brands to Philadelphia, like St. Lucifer Spice and Soom Foods. And then we do larger scale work regionally with companies like Dietz and Watson and Amoroso, and we work nationally with companies like Aramark as well. So it's really
Incredible.
gratifying. We've developed and launched over 100 products in the last decade, and it's a really high success rate.
What's one thing that consumers are doing, a behavior, if you could like wave your magic wand and change a particular consumer behavior from any part of the food chain, I guess probably from grocery store on for most end consumers, what would you do?
We talk a lot about mindful eating and, being thoughtful about what goes into our bodies. But you can extend that to mindful cooking. So really asking, before you throw out half of what's on your cutting board, or before you say, here's a bunch of bones or skin or something that I have no use for, really push yourself and say, like, what could be done with this? Of course, it should be safe to eat. We don't want anyone eating something that's going to make them sick. But often there's great nutrition and great flavor in things that are otherwise destined for the compost or the landfill. For everything on your cutting board, you have your product that you know you're going to use, and then you have two waste bowls. One is absolutely not fit for eating, rubber bands, plastic wrap, something that you really can't use.
Outside of the pineapple, maybe. I don't know, because you could still
Maybe,
ferment
but you
that.
can use that, right? You can
Yeah, I
ferment
can make
that.
kombucha. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then exactly the other bowl for all of the things that you're questioning, right? What could be done? What could be done? And you can move it from the possible bowl to the no bowl, but you have to at least think about it. And what I find is that students come up with great ideas, and home cooks as well, great ideas for that question bowl, right? You just came up with one, like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll make a pineapple kombucha. It can't
Yeah.
hurt. Worst that can happen is it doesn't taste good and I'll throw it out and it's right
Right.
where I started. Best thing that can happen is I have a delicious beverage. I made it myself. I'm saving on all those bottles of kombucha I would have had to buy at the store.
Listeners, I'm going to point you to an Instagram account called Scrappy Eating. A handle is plant. Oh, what is her name? I'm going to get that. I'll get back to that. She did a series that I thought was going to be really dumb on cooking with scraps. I thought it was going to be like, there's only so much dried onion powder you can make, right? But it ended up being an absolutely brilliant series that turned into a book that is a New York Times bestseller now. And I was so impressed by what this girl was doing with the scraps. So there's, you don't have to figure it out yourself is my point. There's lots of people working on exactly what he just said, mindful cooking as well as mindful eating. So, all right, last couple questions here are fun ones. Favorite fruit or vegetable, the thing you see at the farmer's market and you're like, make a beeline for that.
Fruit, definitely that great summer peach that I hope to have every summer. Sometimes it eludes me, but I'm always trying. I think favorite vegetable, I love onions and garlic, and it's not something that, I play tuba, and so if you think of the tuba in a band or an orchestra as like that fundamental bass that you don't even notice if it's done
Right.
well, but something would be missing without it. That's how I feel
Absolutely.
about onions. Like you have to have them and you don't notice them, but there's nothing like it,
I think if you took onions, garlic, and lemons away from me, I'm not sure I could cook ever again. All right, so Klein, do you have a aspirational bag of spinach in your life?
Yeah, I have like 20. I currently have an aspirational bag of broccoli in my fridge.
I was going to say, what is the thing that you have heard is healthy, you buy most often, you're like, I'm going to eat this, and then you don't?
Well, so mine's worse. So because I am single and,
She's single, everyone. Did you hear that? She's beautiful, young, talented, and single. Give me a DM. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to go down that road right now. And healing. So because I'm single, I'm the one who has to cook and I'm the one who has to prep everything and make everything. And so my like aspirational whatever is really just that week's meal that I keep telling myself I'm going to make. And I go through like waves of it where like for a couple weeks I'll be like, this is great, this is easy, I'm doing it every day or every week. And I'm eating at home constantly. And then I have 1 week where like, you're busy, you have places to go, you have things to film, and I fall out of it. And then I fall out of it for like a month.
Yeah, I think that's so many people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because it's a lot. Like, we're getting so off topic.
It's okay. No, we're not. No, we're not actually because we talked in the podcast about meal prep being and cooking probably the number one tool to prevent food waste. Yes. And when I plan out the number of good things that happens in my life. Yes. Okay, so 1, I save money. 2, I don't waste food. 3, that stress of it's 5:30. What the heck am I going to eat for dinner? already decided. And because I was thinking about it at the beginning of the week, I probably prepped something really good, made sure I had the ingredients on hand. Yeah. And then it like solves all those problems. So have I convinced you to food prep yet?
I do food prep.
You do? Yeah. Okay.
That's why I say my aspirational is a little different, because it's like, it's just whether or not I food prep.
Yeah. So is Sunday night your food prep? Is there one night a week that happens?
It varies. Sometimes it depends on what I'm prepping.
Do you always plan out, like when you go to the grocery store in your head, what you're going to eat? Or do you ever do the like, open my fridge and my pantry and just figure it out?
I usually don't have enough food to just figure it out.
Yeah. No, I've got an extensive pantry.
Yeah, exactly. I can do that every now and then, but it takes a couple weeks of like.
Do you ever punch the ingredients into, like, you go on Google and be like, I've got this, 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 and this, what can I make?
No, because I've tried doing that and it never works. It either never works or it's always like, yeah, no, I thought of that and I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Like, no, obviously. It's like, I have eggs and spinach and they're like, you can make an omelet. And I'm like, yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, I already thought of that.
I don't want to make an omelet. Like, give me something else.
Now I've got thinking about spinach omelets.
Really?
I love those ingredients. You know what I have if you want to take it home? I bought aspirational bananas. I bought too many of them.
I eat bananas a lot.
Well, so I'm going to give half them to you because you'll eat them. And then what you don't eat, freeze. Throw them in smoothies, right?
True. I need to get back on a smoothie crunch.
No, I just have to say, I have to reiterate everything we talked about in that podcast, because I was doing some food prep when you walked in today. It changes everything. I'm telling you, things don't go to waste in my house when I do it. I feel like we eat better and definitely save money. And there's a stress reduction to it.
Yeah, definitely. I also, though, have recently discovered the beauty of the freezer.
Yeah. But I meal prepped today. I have stuff for dinner. And so now I feel superior.
You should. You absolutely should.
Everyone else is going to start thinking about it at 6 o'clock and everything's frozen. Be like, mine's ready.
You know what's something else, though, that I was thinking of when I was putting this episode together is that high schools need to bring back home ec.
100%.
Because I graduated high school not knowing how to
Literally everyone who ever listens to this podcast is nodding their head right now. I learned how to cook. I learned how to sew. Yeah. I learned how to use wood shop.
We need to bring it back without the misogyny of it all.
Yeah.
And which I think was the issue, was like people, because
like my grandparents' generation and in there leading up to, or my parents' generation rather, that was a big deal. Like the girls would have taken home ec and the guys would take in shop. By the time I was in high school, everyone was in together.
Yeah. That's what we need. Because I want to learn how to like fix things around the house too. Like that whole thing.
We had at a fourth rotation that was electronics, like how to change a light, like how to put a light in. And I got dumped in front of the entire class by the boy I was dating. So I have a really, really bad juju about that.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Who's this kid? Name him.
I was in junior high. Steve. What was his last name? I don't remember. He was not worth my tears.
I'm sure. I'm sure he dumped
Hi, Steve.
Oh my God.
In front of everyone, though.
That's weird. That sounds like a cry for help.
Yeah. Boy, that went downhill.
But look at where you are now.
That's right. Have
your heart out,
podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.